Subject matter 1320. And the question is as follows. Why is the Moorish American National Republic teaching the 13th Amendment with 20 sections to the masses? I'll repeat the question again. Why is the Moorish American National Republic teaching the 13th Amendment with 20 sections to the masses? Star 7 unmute, state your name and where you're calling from.
Islam.
Islam, Grand Sheikh.
Islam. This is a great question, you know. I'm really glad for the Moor who submitted that question because this needs to be addressed. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali in Acts 6, which, as we taught by National Grand Sheikh, that's a master's degree. And the Prophet Noble Drew Ali makes a reference to 1779 that lasted to 1865 during the times of slavery. And most of the Moors, they built on 1779 when the nationality was taken away from them at 6 Chestnut Street and the cherry tree was chopped down and so forth. But when it comes to 1865, it's silence. Moors are not built on this period of time. What we have to know and understand is that President Abraham Lincoln, who was a Moorish descent, he was a Melungeon, he initiated executive order or executive will during the time, which was 4 proclamations, inclusive of 13 with 20 sections. The first one was called Initial Compensation Proclamation, September 22nd, 1862. Now, when you look into that proclamation, it mentions that we are forever free, that the executive government of the United States, including the military and naval authority, therefore will recognize and maintain our freedom of such persons. We will not do any acts to repress such persons. So we as Moors, you know, we shouldn't have a problem with this because it's stating that we are forever free. And this was in 1862. But let's get to the 13 minutes with 20 sections. Now, you know, I came in contact with Moors that have a problem with the 13 minutes with 20 sections, which I can't understand. Why can we have a problem with this? Because the first section of the 13 minutes with 20 sections tells us that we're able to worship God according to the dictates of our own consciousness. Now, prior to us being persons held as slaves, we wasn't able to worship God according to the dictates of our own consciousness. We was worshiping the God of the Persian nations of Rome. But now we have the ability under this policy to worship God according to the dictates of our own consciousness. It also states in section 17 that we're supposed to be paid for being held as a slave. It also talks about that habeas corpus cannot be suspended.
Well, Islam, obviously he might not be coming on anytime soon. But go ahead, Mo. What's your question on the 13th Amendment with the 20 sections?
Okay, yes. After reading the 13th Amendment with 20 sections, section by section, if you will, and also reading the research on the 13th Amendment with 20 sections that was undertaken by a Congressman Nix of the House of Representatives in 1974, it showed and proved that the 13th Amendment with 20 sections was in fact a pro-slavery document.
What's the question?
Well, I'm building up to the question.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Hopefully it won't take too long, but go ahead.
No, not at all. I'm not long-winded. Now, if this is the case, if anybody has read the 13th Amendment with 20 sections, they'll see that it is in fact a pro-slavery document. So my question then becomes, because the prophet said if you're not careful, your own brothers will put you back into slavery. My question then becomes, why would Moors try to enforce a document that, if it was ever ratified, would essentially put those who have not proclaimed their nationality back into slavery under the hand or the iron grip of the pale-skinned European. AKA, why would somebody push a document that would put our people more back into slavery?
Okay, Islam, that's a good question. So for the people who are not aware of that term, could you please give us the definition of pro-slavery?
Well, if you look at any of the races, we don't even want to say races at the time, the slaveholders' documents back in the days, there were proponents of Europeans, particularly in the South, that wrote legislation, like fugitive slave laws, for instance, that was a reverse of the Underground Railroad, to where they were taking free Moors, whom they call Negroes, and bringing them back into the South to enslave them. So these type of people were called, the types that were pro-slavery, because they needed Moors, whom they call Negroes, to work their fields so that they can continue to make their profits. That's what I mean by pro-slavery.
Thank you so much, Mo. I appreciate you educating the masses tonight. And so the question is, why is the Moorish American National Republic supporting a pro-slavery document, meaning it is being defined by some that the 13th Amendment, with its 20 sections, is a pro-slavery document. So that would be a true or false question. And then, if it is true, why is the Moorish American National Republic pushing a pro-slavery document, i.e., 13th Amendment with its 20 sections? Am I correct?
Yes, basically yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, are you complete, Mo? I didn't want to interrupt. Continue. I was going to open the floor for that question to be addressed.
Yes, please. I would love. I've been trying to get some feedback on it. Let me introduce myself. I haven't done that. My name is Sheikh Way L, Grand Sheikh of Subordinate Temple Atlantis, out here in Athens, Georgia, and we've done a blog talk radio show on this very topic where we expose this particular subject, and I have never received any clarification on it. I invited several of your sheiks to come on said show to have a discussion, and they refused. They said they didn't want to have a debate about it. When I see something that goes against what I feel, goes against the teachings of Noble Drew Ali, it is my duty as a vanguard to address it. So I praise Allah that I have the opportunity to have this particular question addressed right now by your representatives.
And I thank you so much for addressing it. And the floor is open for this question again. Let me repeat the question again for clarity. The 13th Amendment with its 20 sections is classified by certain Moors as being a pro-slavery document. And so this would be a discussion, and the question is, based on that information, why is the Moorish American National Republic supporting the 13th Amendment with its 20 sections, which is classified as a pro-slavery document? Islam, the floor is now open, so I'm going to unmute. State your name and where you're calling from.
Islam.
Oh, have mercy. I tell you, you got a whole bunch of verbs on here. Praise Allah. I don't even know where to start.
Islam.
Oh, Islam.
I give the floor to Grand Sheikh. Islam.
Thank you, Moor. That's a very good question the Moor asked. But we have to understand is that when you read Section 19 of 13 with 20 sections, it states when all several states shall have abolished slavery, then for slavery or voluntary servitude, except for punishment of crime, or a crime shall never be established or tolerated in any state or territory of the United States, it shall be ever free. This pertaining to the Moors, saying that, we forever free. And what you understand is that the 1320 section was passed, the 1320 section, the law was passed by the House, both House of Congress, that was signed into the law by President Abraham Lincoln, February 1st, 1965. Now, we have to understand is that, you know, we understand that President Abraham Lincoln, he was the executive during that time of the Civil War. And according to the Constitution, Article 4, Section 4, it states that if all right, let's get an understanding here that we think that Congress wasn't a lawful body during that time because some more speaks about the sin that were outdated. But we understand that only Congress has the authority to admit new states into the Union, and therefore Congress is the only one who could put states out of the Union according to Article 4, Section 3 of the Constitution. So the southern states were never lawfully out of the Union. That's number one during the Civil War. Now make note that because the Union being perpetual, the Constitution of 1787 was not a replacement of the Articles of Confederation. It was only a continuation of it. So the Articles of Confederation, as a written constitution, is still exists to this very day. We should agree on that. Now I would like to bring your attention to Article 10 of the Articles of Confederation. The Committee of the States or non-states have the authority to execute the power of Congress when Congress is in recess. During the Civil War, 25 of the state legislators of the Union was not in rebellion. None of the state legislators was of the original 13 states. I'm not going to name all of them, but you have Tennessee, Louisiana was returned into the Union under military control. The territory of Nevada and West Virginia was admitted as new states into the Union during the Civil War. If Congress was no longer existing as a local constitutional body in 1886, then West Virginia and Nevada are not lawful Union states, even to this very day, which is not documented anywhere in the United States government. So we should see that Congress did lawfully exist as a constitutional body during the time of the Civil War. Now, pertaining to the executive power of President during the Civil War, I would like to call your attention to the Constitution of 1787, which is Article 4, Section 4. The state of the Union have to be protected against invasion. President Abraham Lincoln prevented the invasion of England and France during the Civil War with the help of Alexander II, who was the Khazar of Russia at that time. The state of the Union had to be protected against domestic violence, which is abuse at home, which we call the Civil War. So now, what I'm saying is that during the Civil War, the president had the power to execute an executive order because it states in the Constitution that in Article 4 in part, in application of legislation, the executive, which is the legislation, cannot be convened. For those who could not believe that Congress would no longer exist as a local constitutional body in 1861, and that President Abraham Lincoln had no authority to issue executive orders, which the legislature cannot be convened, the application of the executive must protect the United States, according to the Constitution of 1887. But President Abraham Lincoln had the full authority to issue an executive order that would necessarily bring the end of the existing rebellions. So Abraham Lincoln had full authority to bring about the four proclamations of Abraham, the four proclamations with the executive order, and the 13 Amendment with 20 sections. Now, the 13 Amendment with 20 sections, as we stated in Section 19 of the Constitution, it stated that, we forever free. And what that means is that basically, when you read the breakdown for that is, I would like for you to pay close attention to this. Shall be altered without the consent of the states. A servitude. This amendment is where our authority rests. Which shall is a promise. The word shall is be found in 3 dead bodies of law. However, there is a 13th Amendment with 20 sections, but specifically because you have reference where it is carried out and the promise was fulfilled. If you read the Great Conspiracy, page 614, all states except the amendment with the original 13 sections as being the law of the land. So, based upon President Abraham Lincoln's 13 over 20 sections, you have what they call the Freeman's Bureau. And the Freeman's Bureau was executed in, was brought about in 1864. This was a continuation of what President Abraham Lincoln had done. That was able for us to have free homes, free education, and was able to colonize anywhere along the 3630, which is a belt.
I didn't mean to interrupt your thought, beloved. I'm just sitting here. I'm reading section 19, and I just wanted to touch on that aspect of it because you brought it up several times, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
Okay, it says in section 19, when all of the several states shall have abolished slavery, then and thereafter, slavery or involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime, shall never be established or tolerated in any of the states or territories of the United States, and they shall be forever free. Now, the problem with that is that the slave states at the time had no plan on abolishing slavery. And this is why you had the abolitionist movement. This is why you had the Underground Railroad. So this section is not saying, like the 13th Amendment with two sections, the one that we actually have in the Constitution, it was a federal law banning slavery. So when it laid its foot down, if you will, or stamped its foot down, that means that was it, and that was that, and all states had to abide by it. Each state, however, has the right to make its own laws, and this is why this particular section is speaking about only if these states abolish slavery, then those slaves will be forever free. South Carolina, Georgia, Mississippi, states like that, they had no intention on ever freeing their slaves because this is how they were making their money. So again, I do not see the usage of "and they shall forever be free," how that applies to this particular document being a document that will free our people, in spite of the fact that Abraham Lincoln had nothing but contempt for our people. So I'm still even more confused as I listen to you as I try to gain clarity. Yes, sir. All
right, Islam Moor. When you read section 19, all that means is that servitude is that a slavery is a debt to society about committing a crime. That's all section 13. That's all section 19 means. If you commit a crime, you have to pay a debt to society about committing a crime. That's what that means. The 13th Amendment that's on the books today is not constitutional. It's a dead badge of law. It was never lawfully, and all the states had to come back into the Union because they had to take the oath of amnesty and reconstruction. Or I just want to make it short to say that the states that he's mentioning, what I just broke down is that they all came back into the Union. And by them coming back into the Union, they had to administer what they call the oath of amnesty and reconstruction, which General Lee had taken. So the proclamation of Abraham Lincoln, it freed us all nationwide. I mean, the 13-22, but when you read the initial Declaration Proclamation, it talks about being forever free. When you read the 13-22, section 17, it talks about how we supposed to be compensated for being held as a slave. When you read the compensation...
You said who? Wait, Islam, you was kind of speaking fast. You said section 17 speaks about us being compensated?
Yes.
Based on my reading, section 17 is speaking about pecuniary assistance to the states who lost their quote-unquote Negro property. I don't see anything, that states that this pecuniary assistance or this compensation, if you will be applied to the free quote-unquote Negroes, using their terms at that time. It just basically says whenever any state wherein involuntary servitude is recognized or allowed shall propose to abolish such servitude and shall apply for pecuniary assistance therein, then Congress may, in its discretion, grant such relief not exceeding $100 for each person liberated. Now, when I read this, it's strictly talking about the state. Yeah, I would love to hear your breakdown on that.
Islam? Yeah, that means more that the slaveholder supposed to be compensated, and therefore then the slaves supposed to be compensated. When you read the Compensation Emancipation Proclamation, because according to the 14th Amendment, Section 4, Section 3, that that went against the Fifth Amendment because you can't be paid for your just compensation. How you doing? Wait, Karima. You haven't been paid for your just compensation, so that violated the Fifth Amendment. So when they brought in the 14th Amendment with that section, that was not in conjunction with the Fifth Amendment. But that wasn't a violation of the policy because they supposed to be compensated and we supposed to be compensated because niggas was classified as being property during that time. So Section 17 is a conjunction with the Compensation Proclamation. When you read it, it talks about us being compensated, dealing with the bonds, and that we was given over 22 states between the Allegheny and the Rocky Mountain chain, which he referred to as Egypt in the West. And this was made permanent part of the Constitution. And that ties back to Leviticus 25:10, which was what we could be given, all our persons back to the land and the things of that nature, which is on the Liberty Bell. So you got to understand, when you read this, prior to the 1520 section being administrated, we didn't have the right to worship God according to dictate our own conscience. We didn't have the right to habeas corpus. We didn't have the right to do different things. And then that was in conjunction with the Freedmen's Bureau that was based upon the 1320 section because this government was ran by it for 3 years. If you do the knowledge on it. And this is what the Prophet Noble Jubilee was referring to in 1865 because it was ratified and made into law February 1st, 1865. So if the Prophet's not referring to this policy, then you tell me what law he's referring to, that from 1779 to 1865 during the times of slavery. This was taking place during this time frame. So this is all in conjunction with the policy of Abraham Lincoln in the 1320 sections. If you read the Compensation Proclamation, you'll see when it talks about how the slaves are supposed to be paid and the slaves are supposed to be paid after. That's what Section 17 was referring to. See, if you don't go to the Moor School of History class, you're not going to really have a great understanding of what each section is referring to because it's kind of hard to understand when you don't have somebody that, could break this down. That's what that's in conjunction with. Islam?
Islam, Grand Sheikh. We all hear you loud and clear.
So like when you read the 1320 sections, I can't really understand why would any more have a problem with these sections when it talks about Section 16. All conspirators of any state, therefore, and lawful rights of any state or against the United States shall suppress or in no state, for the people, therefore, withdrawn from the Union without the consent of 3/4 of all states, expressed by the amendment proposed and ratified in manner provided in Article 5 of the Constitution. This is basically saying, like, if you suppress us, Islam.
Yes.
That's it. Yeah, Islam. That's saying that, if we make any steps to our actual freedom, that's a penal offense because they can't, we forever free. Like, again, I deal with the initial Emancipation Proclamation of Abraham Lincoln that states, again, that the military and navy, that we forever free, that the executive government of the United States, including the military and naval authority, will recognize and maintain our freedom. When you deal with the Freedmen's Bureau, you'll see that when anybody came into, hinder our rights, that the military will step in and act on our behalf. It's the various different cases of where so-called blacks or Moors are being abused by former slaveholders, and the military stepped in act as a representative on behalf of the Moor, and that, you know, some Europeans are actually arrested for committing these crimes. That was based upon the policies of freedom. And the reason I read all the other stuff before to show that President Abraham Lincoln, according to Section 4, Article 4, Section 4, that if legislature convene, he has the ability to execute executive order, and that's what he did with the policies of freedom. So I ask again, if the 13th Amendment 20 sections and the 4 proclamations are not with the purpose of affirmance until 1865 during the time of slavery, then you tell me the law was being enforced. And with that, I